earlier on this week, and it was the Lagos State Education Summit. And they were looking at raising standards in Lagos State. So we had a cross-section of key stakeholders, the governor, the commissioner, public servants, private sector. And Tom was one of the speakers on the second day on innovative strategies in improving in school improvement. So increasing and raising the standards in learning outcomes. So the Lagos State Summit was actually this week, Tuesday and Wednesday, and it went very well.
Okay. So let me start by saying, what do you think is really the problem with education in Nigeria?
Okay. You used a key word. You said two key words, that there's a massive, massive crisis. And you're right. We have major crisis in education in Nigeria. And I think because of that realization, many states, and we want to commend those few states that have taken responsibility for fixing what the problem is. Now, Incubator Africa's point of view or thought is that we are spending a lot of money and a lot of time and effort in fixing a system that is so broken that you need major surgery. There's an analogy that I like using, that you have a major wound, and instead of performing major surgery, you're putting a plaster over it. And we keep plastering what the problem is. And it hasn't gotten us very far in the last 2 decades. So the question is, why do the reforms that we have in Nigeria, why do they keep failing? What are the major issues that we need to address? And when we look at it, we think of teacher education. We need to put the children in school. Access is an issue. 10 million children in Nigeria are out of school. We need to build more classrooms. But these are all superficial solutions to what requires deep-rooted reform initiatives. And Incubator Africa is about those deep-rooted reform initiatives that are required at the federal level, state level, and local government level. And that's why we were convinced that we needed to look at transforming education from a new perspective. And I was privileged to meet Tom Rudmik last year in July at a West African conference on transforming education. And he spoke very passionately about future-ready education. How do we prepare our children for the 21st century? And how do we initiate those deep-seated reforms that I'm talking about? And that's why he's here this morning.
I'm so happy you used those set of words, future-ready education. And I think that's what you were driving at when we had conversation just before we started the show this morning. Future-ready education, complete transformation of the existing system of education. What does that mean, and how does it work?
Well, I'm going to piggyback first on the question of what the real problem is, and then that will flow right into your question. When we understand that the problem of education that we face, whether it be in North America, any place else in the world, or here in Nigeria, are not the symptoms of the current system. The problem we face in Canada, we face in the United States, is how do we prepare students for the future? And the challenge is that the educational system was designed for the industrial age. It was designed to produce students that become workers, that will conform, they will comply, they will meet industrial age standards. And in the system worked fine. You know, often when people ask me what's the problem with education, I say nothing if you lived in the 1940s. But we're living in 2013. And the students that we're graduating are graduating 10 years from now. The world has changed, but the system of education and the fundamental outcome of conform, comply, and meet standards, meaning test standards, is a obsolete system. And so when we came here a year ago, I challenged the leaders at the time. I said, do you want to be the best of what's obsolete? Or do you want to move into the future by beginning to look at future-ready skills? The essence of of future-ready education is students having self-reliance. They can own their learning. So we've built systems around student empowerment, how students can track and own their learning, how students can use higher-order thinking to assess their own learning. And we have that happening in our prototype school starting in grade 1, grade 2. Students are taught the metacognition, the higher orders of thinking, from understanding to the abilities to apply. Can I mentor others? All of these capabilities, students can self-assess their understanding of knowledge. And then the signature of future-ready education is not how well I can do on a test. As a matter of fact, where else in the world does one's measure of success is determined by a test score? You're in the business of television. When you're finished today, are you going to write a test? Is that going to be an indicator of whether or not you were successful? The model of testing is an antiquated model. Now, we at Masters, the prototype school that we have founded, we have focused in on developing students, who they are becoming, with future-ready skills, with values, and what's inside and what's on the outer part of who they are in terms of skills. But at the same time, by implementing an empowerment model of education that engages students deeply, they own the learning. Hence, they can elevate the learning to heights that the traditional classroom cannot. We are outperforming the provincial norms massively. Our school is an award-winning school. Our students are top performers academically. But that is not our core objective. That is just a byproduct of doing